great to see the attendings and welcome. And I hope that you're going to enjoy listening to us and discuss few topics on the topic about building high performing team in startup strategies for success. My name is Daniela. I'm from Native Teams, and this webinar is hosted by us. Just to share something about my journey, I started working in Native Teams since the beginning, since building the Native Teams as a product. I'm happy to say that I was the first product manager, and I feel that Native Teams as a product is like my baby, and we are growing very fast, and it has been an amazing journey for me. Then, because I was always someone that was always taking care of people, even when I was a product manager, I was always taking care of every employee's well-being and so on. So that's why very naturally I transitioned to be part of building this high-performing team that we have right now. I started in the recruitment team, which was held by myself only. I started by myself, building an amazing team that we have right now. And yeah, that's why I'm very excited for this webinar, because it's something that we're working on it on daily basis, how to improve ourselves and how to be better at our job and build this high performing team that we are right now. On this webinar, we will cover a few topics about creating and building high-performing teams, why a high-performing team is important for success of startups in particular, and we're gonna just share some best practices that we have. So Mia, I will just introduce you, and then you can say a few words about yourself. So Mia is our COO in Native Teams. She started a year ago working as part of Native Teams. I'm very happy to say that I was part of the recruitment process when Mia started. So we are together from day zero to say, and we are working very closely, and we are very close to each other. We are like teammates, more of a friends. Melissa, welcome. I just saw that you joined. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So yes, as I said to everyone, Mia will be sharing something of our best practices and something about the topic about how we are building a high-performing team. And Melissa here is a CEO of Bamble, that is a startup in HR tech recruitment space. I'm very happy to say that Native Teams and Bamble have just partnered in the recruitment space, so this webinar is timely. So I will just leave space for both me and Melissa to share a few words about yourself before we start.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Daniela. Yeah. Well, thank you. I know it's so weird for us. I was saying to Melissa just before you joined, I said to Daniela, because we speak every day on this topic as we look to build high-performing teams within Native Teams. But yeah, I mean, I am very grateful that I passed Daniela's very considered recruitment process when I joined the business a year ago. I obviously come from the EOR space. I think my interview process took about 6 months. So it was definitely something that you could see that there was a lot of thought being put into it by both the founders and Daniela before I joined and in the C-suite. But yeah, it's been a really great journey, and also kind of being a part of what you do, Daniela, and your team now does in building the team, and we'll talk later about the growth. But I think anybody that joins a startup knows how agile you have to be and how comfortable with change you have to be, and it doesn't matter what kind of team you're building, but very much that the basis of the startup is the people, right? It's an idea and it's people. So yeah, it's been a good, well, now over a year, and yeah, hopefully onwards and upwards. Melissa, maybe you wanna, now that you're here, maybe we can do a little quick intro and people can learn a little bit more about you and Bamble and the work that you do.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me, Daniela and Mia. It's like really a pleasure to share a little bit of what we are doing at Bumble. So as Daniela said, I'm CEO of Bumble and co-founder as well. Bumble is an HR tech that it's aiming to connect talent from emerging talent hubs in Africa and Latin America with opportunities worldwide, with the objective of helping companies as well to find really highly skilled talent in other regions, right? Which is a challenge, especially when startups are building their teams from scratch. So that's what we're doing. I have over 10 years of experience in the HR field in different roles. So I'm here to share a little bit of what I've been doing. And hopefully you can also take these tips and implement them in your companies or your roles.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your experience. Okay, so we can start with the topics and we can just start about understanding the importance of high-performing team. Mia, let's start with you. If you can explain why you think high-performing teams are very critical for the success of the startups.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are, high-performing teams in general are critical to the success of anything, whether it's startups or sport. Like most things in life are team sports. Most things are collaborative ventures. So, yeah, and hopefully that collaboration and that units or that set of people perform at a high level, and then obviously it will result in success. But I think importantly, we consider, and Daniela, you and I talk about this all the time, how do we foster that a high performing team? Because from the recruitment stage, you bring in these incredibly talented individuals, you bring them into the business, but they are who they are, and the results will come. And I think what's important is the environment we create for those individuals and those teams, and then the success will organically follow. It just naturally will follow if we really do provide what they need to so that we can get the best out of them, and that they feel fulfilled by the work that they do. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say, is that obviously it's critical, but more critical is what we give them in terms of environment, and ourselves as well, because even I think that the leadership, but also the entire business needs to operate in an environment, in a space that feels good and healthy, and then success organically follows. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure Melissa has some ideas as well, because she's so actively involved as well in the recruitment space on, characteristics of maybe a high-performing team. And the ones, maybe, Melissa, that you've built at Bamble, but also that you help build for your customers.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think this is like a really important topic. And as I mentioned before, like we continuously are working with startups from early stage until they actually manage to scale. So if we talk about like early stage startups, we know that, well, resources are limited at the beginning. So we definitely want to have in our teams the best people possible that allow us to, achieve that specific milestone. And then from there start like growing and growing. And if you're already a scale up, well, you need to have several high-performing teams that like allow the company or help you thrive. So among all the characteristics, I think, Mia, you mentioned a couple of them already, very briefly, like leadership. Well, leadership or finding people that actually have some sort of leadership skills are really, really important at the beginning, because that we always need someone that allows us to push our team to move forward to that specific objective that we're sharing at the beginning. And when we talk about an early stage startup, for example, probably the team is going to be 5 people tops, like at the beginning. So there's someone that have to like push the others in a way that they encourage on how to pursue that specific vision. Like one of the other characteristics, I think, and probably Daniela and Mia, that you have been in these several recruitment processes, communication is key. Communication is key because it assures that everyone is on the same page. We need to be all aligned, again, moving towards the same objective. And communication, it's about not only being in the same page, but making sure that we're not creating silos of information, right? When one person knows something and is not able to share or communicate an existing problem, so we don't know how to solve it as a team. So communication is critical. And I've seen so many people in processes that were actually discarded because they were not able to communicate enough and at the right time. and that is critical for the success of the company. Then you also mentioned, Mia, like trust and collaboration. I think at the early stage and when you grow, trust and collaboration it's really key. Know that we are always that definitely encourages creativity and also builds like that sense of belonging. So when I trust someone, I feel like I'm part of everything we're creating together, and I'm able to speak up if I need to, even if it's a good or probably like a critical situation. So the trust builds that relationship that actually pushes the team to succeed. And I have a couple of more things that are really aligned to the startups. Well, one that I like particularly because I've seen the real benefits in these 10 years of working with really distributed companies. It's like diversity and inclusion. It's a big thing. It's I know that now diversity and inclusion is sort of like a buzzword that, oh yeah, we all want to be diverse,
Yeah.
but actually it's proven that financially teams that are diverse bring more financial benefits to the company than teams that are not as diverse. And why, if you think it from the perspective that, well, I have people from like 5 different nationalities in my team, for example, like in innovation team or product team, I can have like 5 different like point of views and realities and ways to solve one specific problem that have everyone with the same background or the same approach to any specific problem. So that's one that I like, but I know it's challenging, especially now where we all feel the pressure that, oh yeah, how do we build these diverse and inclusive teams? But it definitely it's something that we as companies need to look for because again, in terms of financial benefits, because all companies, right, if they're for profit, they want to be like super successful and have like high revenue. It has a direct impact. It's like correlation. It's straight. Then another characteristic important as well, it's accountability. We know that the startups, everything moves fast. Everyone has to wear like different hats at the same time. So that accountability, that being responsible for something and being able to meet that objective is absolutely important. And I think the last one that are really, really well, I have like one or two more, like flexibility. It's really important. Mia said at the beginning, oh, everything's changing really fast, and that's true. Because startups are like one of the main characteristics of startups is being able to change quite fast and they respond to the environment quite quickly. So the teams need to like follow that as well, especially if you're working in technology. You can have like a very
Yeah.
beautiful roadmap and then next day, oh no, we're gonna pivot the idea because it's not making money. So the team needs to adapt quite fast. And sometimes it's not easy to have those skills because you're used to work in a very structured environment. And the last one I think that I particularly like when we talk about um, professionals that are starting their careers. Of course, they are not going to have proven experience in the past, but that ability to learn fast can be spotted. So actually being a self-learner and a continuous learner, um, it's something that for the companies, if they know how to assess it during the recruitment process, it's a person that can probably have better performance than someone that has more experience. So some of the characteristics I share are the ones that we normally try to spot when we're building these high performing teams for startups at different stages. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also
Amazing.
think.
It's
Oh, sorry, Daniela. I was
no,
I
no,
was
no.
just gonna add, yeah, I was just gonna add to the diversity point you're making because I also think that diverse teams lend themselves to cross-functional collaboration and not consensus. And that's a really important thing because when you have a team that's not diverse, they tend to reach consensus really quickly and might not necessarily get to what's actually good for business and a great solution, but rather just what kind of pleases everybody in the room and just diversity of thought. So I know that there is that buzzword, but I think you're right, Melissa, that if it's done properly and if it's done with the interest of the business at heart, you will naturally have a team that reach a better solution than one that's based on just consensus.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And to complement on what you're saying, like I spoke with so many founders when they come to me and said, I need to hire someone. And one of the main things they say, especially if they're working in the product itself, is like, I need people that can challenge me. who can challenge my ideas or what we have. We don't want people that always say yes to everything.
Yeah.
So bringing that diversity in terms of points of view again, like it's quite enriching and it's translated into the actual product or into the actual goal that you're giving to the person to achieve.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And when we
completely
talk
agree.
it, yeah. And I know, Daniela, when we speak to people that you and your team are recruiting, but also when we talk to our customers, we definitely highlight well, one of the things that native teams does really well and that we try to do is remove those barriers from talent, right? And that naturally again pushes through more diverse talent. And so it's kind of changing the way people view work and opportunities, not only because it's a remote work environment, but that everybody and all talent should have access to all opportunities. So there's equality of opportunity, not just, it's not equality of outcome, it's equality of opportunity, which is something that native teams that, we try to do, obviously in our business, but also facilitate for our customers. But yeah, the diversity piece, I think also for all of us on this call, we come from all these different parts of the world. We're all living in different parts of the world from where we actually, started off. I think it's super important, super important. And
Definitely.
yeah. And also I think as
Yeah, I
leaders
just
as
wanted,
well.
yeah, I just wanted to add here, just to explain to everyone how we are building the team and how we get to that kind of building the high performing team. Because when we started, I mean, I was the only person, but since being here and being in the recruitment team, but because I was here from the beginning, I knew what kind of culture, what kind of people are we looking for in the team. And back then we were only 20 people. Since then we experienced 10 time growth, and our business right now is 200 people. So really, we always need to focus on the technical skills, but at native teams, for us, it's more important to have that kind of a X factor, to say, that we always call, and that is something that is really important for us. I cannot explain what is that X factor, because it's something that we have it our DNAs, but there is no bad candidate when we recruit people. It's just something that we really look forward to find that something that we think that it will fit for us. Being part of the business for so long, it made me find that and made me realize what we are looking for in people. And that's why our team right now, after I built my team, my incredible girls that are working with me right now, they're just carrying through and they know what we are looking for. And that's how we are just keep growing and getting to that position to be 200 people at this stage. So besides everything that is, technical or diversity of everything, I always say that the culture is very important to have, to be part of an organization, communication skills and everything, because that is something that will build a good team and also high performing team. Because if they collaborate between themselves, if they have a good cross collaboration based on their culture, that's how they're gonna be better at their work. So yeah.
It's always
So okay.
interesting,
Yeah.
Daniela, to speak to people that are part of I know you like one of the founding members of the business. I think you were like, I think it started when you and Jack and Alex put this business together with some of the others, it was like 20 people. And then I guess it's grown 10 times through your efforts. And now we're almost at 200 people. But it's always interesting to speak to founding members of a business because they're very clear on that X factor or DNA. There's definitely, like you say, you can't necessarily put it into words, but you know exactly what you're looking for.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's why I still want to be part of that recruitment process to take the final stage. Just for me to feel that those people, when we select, they have that. It's not that I don't believe my girls or anything, but I just want to be part of that, just because I would like to make sure that those people will fit good in our team and what we are building as a team. So yeah. Okay, so let's just catch up just to share some best practices that we have in our team. So I'll start with Melissa. What do you think are some effective approaches to discovering and hiring top talent for startups?
Okay, so the way we normally assess it is like we have three main blocks in order to understand if a candidate's a perfect fit for a specific company. One of them you already mentioned it, and it's actually the technical skills. I'm gonna mention this one first because since we're focused on technical roles mainly in for developers or engineers, when they need to know in a specific language, let's say it's you know it or you don't know it, and how much you know out of it. So it's not there's no really gray area if we're hiring someone for a technical role. So the technical skills needs to be proven, and that's like okay, that's like let's say one check on the checklist. But then we have two more things which probably you resonate with that because you mentioned it already like a couple of times. And there's a cultural assessment, and then there is a behavioral assessment. So those two are actually the ones that weight more. And why do they weigh more in this process? Because actually candidates, for startups, there will be a point where they will meet the founders. Disregarding the size of the company, at some point they will meet one of the founders, and the culture of it's really important. And it's actually related to what you were mentioning, that X factor. I need that person that had that X factor that identifies Mia with native teams, and I had to be able to spot that with some specific questions that made me know that whatever she's looking for or whatever she's going on or her goals are actually aligned to my company vision and goals. So that's one really important thing. And then the behavioral part or the soft skills, as most of us know them, are really, really important because they're actually aligned to the characteristics I mentioned at the beginning. So communication, how fast can you learn? Are you actually a team player or you like to work individually? So all those things are mainly able to be assessed in a behavioral interview. That now can be done with AI, and like there are so many resources that you can do it. But like those are the main three blocks that we normally divide, and we spot like high performing candidates in the recruitment process. But as I mentioned, like behavioral and cultural fit for startups are really, really critical because the impact that one role has is absolutely different. The impact that one person can have in an enterprise, for example, where you are one person out of 2,000 people. It's different when you are like one person out of a team of 5, 10, even 100. Like your impact in the company is going to be huge. So those are some of the practices that we actually implement, and then we use different frameworks to make sure that we can create this 360 degrees assessment of the candidate before presenting it to a company.
Yeah,
Amazing.
completely agreed. And yeah, so Mia, from your side, how can founders and entrepreneurs build a collaborative and culture among their employees? Since we are talking about culture right now, I know that we really spend a lot of time discussing on this topic, but I'm asking for the wider benefit here. Could you share some thoughts of how we are building our culture in native teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Melissa's point, it starts at that recruitment phase, and of course, there's like we say, there's the technical side, and then there's the soft skill side. But what we've realized, Daniela, in the long run, is that it's really difficult. And with no disrespect, it's very difficult for a candidate in the interview process to fake the soft skill side. It's really hard once you and we do this. We did it a couple of weeks ago in an interview where an individual was really stressed, and we said, just relax. This is just a conversation, because we really want people to feel comfortable, and then we get to see who they are, what they're about, what's their value system. And it's really hard. You can talk a lot about your technical skills, but once you just kind of get to your authentic self and you're speaking about who you are and what you're about, you will very quickly figure out whether that person's a good fit for your team from a soft skills or EQ side. So yeah, just to kind of round out that. But I know it really matters because it's very hard to present something that isn't true, and it's very easy to tell if the candidate is not being true to their authentic self. But to your question, sorry, Daniela, on building that collaborative culture. We'll talk a little, maybe after this, we can talk a little bit more about the tools that we use and
Yes.
at Bamble and native teams. But I think
Yes.
it goes back to environment. Something I do with some of my direct reports is make sure that they feel safe to act autonomously, and that they know that there is definitely there's safety in making mistakes. There's safety in being autonomous. As long as you did what's good for the business, as long as you had the interests of the business at heart, you can't go that wrong. You can't, it's not going to go that, all right, it's going to be okay in the end and we'll figure it out, and nothing is truly life and death. And that just allows people to collaborate. It allows people to put aside like imposter syndrome and share their thoughts and want to be parts of something bigger than themselves, because they feel safe and they feel like they belong to their team, their community. They belong to the business. They see what they connect with the vision and understand what the work they're doing today how that matters in the big picture. But it all goes to the environment, and it goes to the people managers. And I always say, people management is not for everybody. I think it's a really interesting role, but it's definitely a role that is focused on trying to get the best out of your collaborative teams. And to do that, you have to create an environment that feels safe, that allows people to express themselves, allows people to make mistakes, and also rewards good behavior, as opposed to behaviors that might not necessarily be in the interests of the business. But we also, and Daniela and I do this, Melissa, at Native Teams, where we do it in different ways. I don't think there's one way to create, how can a founder build a collaborative culture? I think there's many ways, and it's the sum of the parts. Like, because we spread out all over the world, we're a remote business, but you can do that not only in the work you do, but also in the training you do, in the communications you do, whether we have a coffee chat or a chat room, or thank you channels, gratitude channels. We do different ways of helping foster that environment so that they feel connected and can see the common goals. But it's a life. I think it's a lifelong thing. I don't think that it's like, okay, great, now we're a collaborative team. I think it's an ongoing piece of work. And as the business scales, candidly, it becomes more difficult to make sure that you keep that wholesome, things remain wholesome and feel good and people still feel connected. And so you have to do so much more for your teams to make sure that environment is kept in a way that matches what we originally began with.
Yeah,
I
no,
completely agree. Yeah.
yeah, no, I
Melissa.
wanted to compliment what you were saying, Mia, because I think you were right, or I totally agree with what you say in terms of like there's no like a secret formula for that. So there's not like a specific recipe you need to follow in order to say, okay, now we actually a collaborative and innovative team, and this is the culture that we are having in the company. But it's about like creating that safe environment, and this is something that I relate a lot in the companies that I actually had in the past or helped in the past to build teams, and also at Bumble. It's like, how do you create that actually safe space for the whole team to feel like they belong, but not only that they belong, but they feel heard, they feel that they can speak up and give feedback and receive feedback openly as well. So as you grow all together as a team while you push towards the same goal. And I think like that is key, and that's the hardest part, because trust, is like, let's say companies not much different like than our daily basis, like daily life. So to build trust, it takes some time. We like need to go through that process of getting to know each other, trying to understand what's the best way to work. Let's say probably working with Mia is slightly different to working with Daniela, and how do we understand that each employee is an individual and is a human being, and how we can embed it as part of the culture and the way we relate to them. It's absolutely crucial. And once they feel heard and understood somehow, because they are, if you hire them, it's because they have the potential. right?
Yeah,
But how do
yeah,
you make sure that that potential it's been unfolded during the whole time that they're going to stay in the company and give their best to the company for both sides? So I think that's that's the core word for me. Like, how do you build a safe space and build
Yes.
trust among your teams, and that it's actually not vertical but it's transversal, so it's easier for me to go and speak to my leader, or if I have a team that I'm leading, how do I speak with my team, and I feel free to speak to both sides in the same way. So yeah, I just wanted to compliment that because
yeah.
I felt really related to what you were saying.
And I don't want to harp on the topic too much, but I think it's an important one. Is exactly to your point of vertical and transversal. Is often when I talk to my teams about what collaboration looks like, and let's not pull any punches. All teams have problems. Collaboration is a topic, obviously, because sometimes it is difficult to get right. Is to really look to your left and right as a team member, because as much as you have leaders and managers that are trying to drive the business forward, it goes to autonomy. It's the sum of the parts. So that collaboration is, it can be theorized, it can be dictated, but if you have the right DNA that Daniela talks about, then you and the person next to you, to your left and right, are able to be a real, to help build that collaborative team and really deliver on your team's goals and the business goals. But it has to also be really looking at what you have in your space, because it's never top down. It just never is. It's really the sum of the parts.
One thing that
So
we are always encouraging people internally in native teams is to communicate between themselves, because for us, communication is very critical, and we build async work. And right now we are using tools like Asana to support that and everything. And it is very good because they understand how to communicate best, and they're covering themselves. And we have a lot of team catch-ups offsites just for us to make that cross collaboration even stronger and better, and for them to know how best to communicate between themselves. So that is also something that is very critical for each team to build trust, but also to build to know how to communicate between themselves. So yeah.
And to the point of communication, and I just thought of this, Daniela, we live in a world right now where communication is actually really easy. You can pick up the phone, pick up your iPad, whatever. It's really easy to communicate with people. But actually, I think that we're struggling to communicate, communicate properly, I guess. When you don't have, it's sometimes the DMs and things make it, the accessibility is really easy, but it's really difficult if you don't know how to communicate. Melissa was saying earlier, you have to feel safe to communicate. You have to also understand that not everybody communicates in the same way. Like we use different tools. We either doing it in IRL, we're doing it in remotely, we're doing it in different ways. I would say that as long as it's transparent, it's probably going to be the best way to do it. And as long as people feel safe, then there's no real harm in making a mistake, and even in that communication, there's no harm in doing that. But the accessibility is one thing, but it's the content and how we communicate that matters, because tone and things get lost. I sound so much older, hopefully, than I am, but things get lost these days. And that really affects collaboration. People sometimes forget that actually we can get together and we can talk. We can collaborate on this. It doesn't have to be so kind of cold. Sometimes it just seems like that when we don't communicate properly, we don't collaborate properly. And that's how we fail. We fail our projects, we fail our teams.
Yes,
So
completely agree. And thank you very much for sharing that. It is very good to share that. But yeah, that is very important for us. Okay, I don't have anything more to ask you girls, but I encourage everyone that is on this webinar right now, if you do have any questions for us, feel free to ask in the chat box below. But Melissa, Mia, any closing thoughts to add something from your point, while we wait for some questions from the attendees?
Yeah, well, I'd love to go back to the topic of communication because actually
Sure.
I think that's a quite important point when you're building a high-performing team. And as Mia was saying, it's really define the expectations on what do you expect out of the communication because as you were saying, we have so many channels at present. Like I can send a WhatsApp text from like a Slack or an email or even call someone. And we have so many channels available. But do we are actually communicating in a safety environment? So do I feel like I can't actually communicate with you and nothing's gonna happen, nothing's bad is gonna happen, especially if it's a sensitive topic of something's happened. So I think giving that transparency and going back again to what Mia was saying, like transparency is absolutely important and creating that safety space. I remember not long ago I was leading like a squad to build a platform, and I had a new tech lead, a guy with so much experience, and the first thing when we met that he told me, it's like the only thing I ask you as my leader speak transparency. So I need to know what's
Yeah.
going on. And that's the only thing that's going to make me perform. And I was like, you're totally right. We have to have like a transparent communication because my role as a leader is to unblock things for you because I'm gonna sit there and code. So if I have a problem, I need to go to you. So and you need to trust that I'm able to unblock all those problems for you so you can deliver. So it's like actually collaborative space. And he was like, if you give me transparency, like throughout whatever it's happening with the stakeholders and everything, because we work with a lot of stakeholders nowadays. We can be part of the
Yeah.
HR team or the sales team, but then the rest of the teams are our stakeholders. And that transparency, it actually creates safety and trust. So I think it's absolutely relevant when you are saying, okay, I want people to communicate, but if you are not creating the foundations for that communication to be transparent and easy, people will say, okay, yeah, I'm communicating, I'm talking to you, but probably the content in that message is not going to be as relevant and powerful as it could be because they don't feel safe. So that's something to look up to. I think it's really related to the company culture as well and how free everyone feels to speak up and so on. But when it comes to the recruitment process, then it's like, okay, how do we spot the person based on past experiences? It's able to address difficult situations. So yeah, I just wanted to compliment that because I think communication, it's a big thing and it's something that we normally hear every time we are working with a new client, a new startup, and they come and say, I need someone that can communicate, please. Just
Yeah.
make sure they can communicate. And I have, as I said,
Yeah.
people discarded say, oh yeah, I think probably this person needs to communicate better. So I can actually bring into team excellent technical skills, like best
Yeah.
of best, but I can't hire it. Doesn't have like communication
Yes.
skills. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely part of
Yeah.
the profile of a high performing person.
I also would say, what if I had to give unsolicited advice on communication is also really listen to your teams. Uh, they tell you as well. They'll tell you very clearly, or for the most part, what they need, what they want, what they're looking for. Last week I had somebody. We were chatting about just something that uh, seemed to be it was going on, and it was a Slack conversation, and obviously it goes back and forth. And then somebody in my team said, "Let's just have a call about this." And that's really great, right? Because obviously what she's saying is, I'm struggling now with this communication. I don't feel like I'm being heard, or you misunderstanding me. And then the ability to say that, first, she feels safe to do so. She doesn't feel like there's anything wrong with saying, hey, I really need to speak about it. Um, but I do think that when you give your teams space and safety, like you say, Melissa, they will also tell you what they need when it comes to communication, what they need to communicate, or how they want to communicate. And I think everybody's so different. I'm really learning that the individuals in that diverse team, they all communicate so differently and in so many different ways, and it takes time to kind of figure out, how does this person feel comfortable, and how does this person feel comfortable, and how do I figure out how I can make them, yes, have one-to-ones, but also feel comfortable to communicate in all their different ways and styles, as a collaborative team. But I think that's the job of leaders that are building high-performing teams. is to really invest in all those kind of nuances that are really hard to quantify, I would say. It takes time, and like you say, time to build trust, to be able to do that. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think that we've covered everything, and I can see that we don't have questions. So yeah, I would like to thank you, both of you, for being part of this webinar. I hope that it was very important for everyone to hear our best practices, and I hope that it wasn't boring for the audience. And I just wanted to say thank you for the whole audience for being here and participating in this webinar. I would just encourage all of you that are here to go to nativeteams.com or bamble.com just to learn more about us, about what we offer as a service, and of course, reach out if you do have any questions, book a demo or however you see fit. But we are always encourage you to connect with us and to ask us any question that you might have about our services. Thank you very much, all of you, and hope you're going to enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Daniela. Thanks, Melissa. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Bye.